We got some challenges here for you. You're going to find missing lengths on these composite shapes. Composite shapes are simply shapes built out of simple shapes. So we have rectangles, triangles, trapezoids, parallelograms, circles. Did I say triangles yet? That can all be jammed together and form these interesting shapes that aren't your typical simple geometric shapes. All right, but our end goal is to find the area of these shapes. But to find area, we usually need to know a bunch of the side lengths and a bunch of the dimensions, and sometimes they're not all given to you. But in all the problems, you'll be able to find them out using some simple reasoning. So we're going to talk about that simple reasoning right now and give you some practice. So we're going to be finding missing side lengths. All right, let's look at this first one. You see this line here that has an X on it? We're trying to find how long that line is. Now, to find the length of a horizontal line, you can only look at other horizontal lines to help you. All right, so you see this long horizontal line is 9 centimeters. And you notice that this line is 4 centimeters and this line is 3 centimeters. All right, now you're going to guess. What do you think this missing length is? All right, so what I do is I kind of envision all these lines kind of plopping down and going onto this bottom line, which is kind of like the total here. All these 3 green lines up higher are going to fall down here and basically equal or total up to this length of 9, right? So there's 4 centimeters here, there's 3 centimeters here. What would this length have to be to make that full 9 centimeters? Well, so 9 minus 4 and minus 3 gives us 2. So in this case, this missing side length is 2 centimeters. All right, let's try this next one. This time we'll look at X here, but in this case it's vertical. It's a vertical line, and so we can only really use other vertical lines to help us with that. So let's look at the 3 centimeters here and the 4 centimeters here. Go ahead and try your own guess. Now, if we scoot these over, right, we'd have 3 and 4, and there's no gaps or anything, so 3 plus 4 is 7. So 7 centimeters would be X. All right, so that's how we find that missing side length. I'm going to change colors to just make a point here. So if we are looking for Y next, and we look at the other horizontal lines, we have 6 centimeters here and 2 centimeters here. In this case, it's not going to be a total, right? They're not going to add up to equal Y. If we were to slide Y up here and slide the 2 centimeters, those lines, this would be 2 centimeters. What would this have to be to equal that, right? We're going to do 6 minus 2, and that would be 4. So this missing length would be 4. Let's try a couple more. Let's look at the X here. We're going to look at other vertical lines here and here. So in this case, the 5 is the longest. So we're going to do 5 minus 1 and get 4 here for X. Let's look at Y now. We're going to look at other horizontal lines. The 4 centimeters up there, 7 centimeters down here. Sometimes you can imagine sending them down to meet up with the other lines. But what I notice is that 4 plus the Y, 4 plus something, is going to give us 7. And I know that that number is 3. Or I could do 7 minus 4 gives me 3. Hope you're catching on quickly. Let's start with X over here. Now, we need the other vertical lines, so we'll indicate them in green. And it looks like 12 is the longest. And it looks like the X and the 5 add up to equal 12. So what would X have to be? It would have to be 7 feet. Now we're going to go to Y, which is horizontal. So let's look at the other horizontal. Looks like 15 is the longest. Y and 8 would fall down and add up to 15. So we do 8 plus something equals 15, and that number would be 7. Let's try some more. So this one is similar to the ones we've already done. We're looking for this length of X, so we look at the other horizontal lines. Looks like 6 is the longest one, so 6 minus 4 equals 2, so X is 2. And let's do y. Since it's vertical, we're going to look at the other vertical lines. The 7's the longest. So if we do 7 minus this 1, that should get us y, which would be 6 kilometers. All right, I think you're getting it. Are you getting it? I'm feeling that you're getting it. All right, here's an x. We're looking for that missing side length. If we notice the other horizontal lines, all right, if we drop them all down here on top of this line that's 10 centimeters, then it looks like we'd get 3 here, 3 here, and in the middle, what would that have to be to equal 10? Well, 3 plus 3 is 6, so 10 minus 6 would be 4. X equals 4 in this case. Now, we're going to move on to a couple of shapes that might look a little different. They're not strict, composite shapes with just rectangles that make them up. They have this left one has a semicircle, half of a circle, and a rectangle. And this one has, it looks like, you could break it up a couple ways, but I usually try to use only horizontal and vertical lines to break things up. So I think I would break it up like this, right like that. Just cut that little triangle off. And then I would need to know this side length right here to find the area of that triangle, because what you need to find area of a triangle is the base and the height. I would also need this length right there. So let's call this X and let's call this Y. All right, see how we're using a skill that we kind of learned up here, but now we're applying it a little bit more. I didn't have them labeled at first. I had to actually make my cut here, this line here, and then I realized, ooh, since the area formula of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, I need to find this and I need to find this. I need to find the base and I need to find the height. So then that's the next step, is cutting the shape into the composite shape into the simple shapes and then realizing which dimensions I need to complete my formula. So I would need the base and the height here that meet at a right angle. Base and height always have to meet at right angles, so I need those 2 dimensions. All right, so we'll get to that one. Actually, let's do it now. All right, I'm just gonna redo this one with green since we've been kind of consistent with that. All right, so how long is that length? Well, it looks like my other lines, I have 18 over here and 11 over here. So that missing side length would be 7, because 11 plus 7 equals 18. So the base of that would be 7. So 1/2 times 7. And then now I need this shape here, or this length here, that Y. We know that the whole thing is 20 meters and that the bottom is 14 meters. So if I subtract those, I would get Y equals 6. So then this, now I know that that replaces with 6. And I could get my area equals, I'm just going to do commutative property and say 1/2 of 6 is 3, and then 3 times 7 is 21. So this area, the space inside this closed shape, the space inside there, is 21. And then I need to also find the area of this rectangle here, which is just base times height, or length times width, which would be 14 times 18. Which you could do, and then what would you do with those 2 areas, the area of this in here and the area of this? You'd add them, boom, to get your area of the total composite shape. All right, so last part, we're going to look at this. We have rectangle and we have a semicircle. Well, you know the semicircle's area is 1/2 pi r squared. So what dimension do we need? We need the radius of that semicircle. Well, we don't have the radius, do we? No, we don't. But we have other information that can be used to help us. It is a vertical line. So we're going to look over here at the other vertical line. We know that this diameter has to be 8, since it's across from a line that measures 8 feet. So we know the diameter is 8 feet, so we're going to cut that in half and get 4 feet. So now we can do area equals 1/2 times pi times 4 squared. All right, so we can use that area formula now. Once we get that answer, we'd add that answer to the area of the rectangle, which is 10 times 8, or 8 times 10. So we'd add those two answers together to get the area of this whole composite shape. All right, so there's the preview of our lesson and some of the prerequisite skills. Hopefully that helps. Good luck with your quizzes.